Hello students, we will now discuss in this video about trade barriers. This is in the course of International Marketing of the BMS program. Since trade barriers are related to international trade, let us understand what international trade is. It has a very vital place in all the economies of the world, whether they be developed, developing or in underdeveloped countries. All countries do not have the same nature endowed on them. The same productive resources are not endowed on all countries. There are so many differences in their economies, like differences in climatic conditions, natural and geological deposits. Also, the supply of capital and labor are different in quantity and quality. Not a single country in the world could be regarded as truly self-reliant economy. They mutually depend on each other due to their needs and requirements, and hence comes in the picture international trade. This is an activity of buying and selling among nations in the world. There is an exchange of goods and services among the nations. The effect of international trade is that it can be considered as an engine of growth. It brings about positive economic development, political influences, and it also positively impacts the cultural aspect of the country. The positive growth due to international trade widens up the market, gives the consumers a larger choice of products. Also, through international trade takes place innovation through the technology transfer between countries, and international trade also creates competition among the local producers. The local producers are now incited to produce better quality products for their own local consumers. It also increases savings and capital formation of the country by increasing the employment that happens in the country. Because of employment increase, income increases and so does the savings, and hence the capital forms in the banks and other financial institutions. It also has an influence on the education of the country, and the surplus is vented out. There is efficient allocation of resources and optimization of production that takes place due to international trade, as many of the companies try to export the products so as to create surplus and sell in the foreign markets. International trade does mean exchange of goods and services between countries. However, each country, the government of each country, needs to safeguard the interest of their local production and local producers, and hence trade barriers. These trade barriers refer to the government policies and measures which obstruct the free flow of goods and services across national borders. Trade barriers are imposed on both exports as well as imports. They are man-made obstacles on the free movement of goods in between different countries of the world. The objectives of trade barriers are to protect domestic industries or a certain sector within the domestic industries from any foreign competition, especially if there are sunrise industries in the domestic economy. They have to be protected from foreign competition. Trade barriers also help to protect the economy against dumping, especially from the rich countries who want to vent out their surplus production into the lesser developed or developing nations. Trade barriers can also help in promoting indigenous research and development. This not only helps to promote new products, but also sometimes gives rise to new industries. Trade barriers helps in the conservation of foreign exchange resources of the country by restricting imports. This can also make the balance of payment position more favorable by trying to increase exports and decrease the imports. Trade barriers can also help to curb conspicuous consumptions. These encourage the use of domestic production in the domestic market and thereby help making the country strong and self-sufficient. These trade barriers are taxes which are imposed by the government on imports and exports, and it also helps in mobilizing revenue for the government. Trade barriers, if used judiciously, can help make the economy self-reliant. Trade barriers are of two types: tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers. The tariff barriers can be classified as per criteria, retaliation, country of origin, and the purpose of imposing the tariff barrier. The tariff barriers based on criteria are specific duties, ad valorem duties, and compound duties. Specific duty is a flat sum per physical unit of the commodity imported or exported, while ad valorem duties are levied as a fixed percentage of the value of the commodity imported or exported. Compound duties is subject to a mix of both specific duty as well as ad valorem duty. The tariff barrier based on retaliation are retaliatory barriers and countervailing duties. The retaliatory barriers are those which are imposed by a country because the country on the other side where the exchange of goods and services were happening had imposed a trade barrier. Countervailing duty: if the exporting country has put an export subsidy on the product to increase its exports, then the importing country producer suffers as they may face competition from cheap foreign goods entering the markets. So the government imposes a tax in return. The tariff barrier based on the country of origin are single column tariff, double column tariff, and the triple column tariff. The single column tariff provides a uniform rate of duty for all like commodities without making any discrimination between countries. The double column tariff, it differentiates between countries because there are two rates of duties on some or all of the commodities. And the triple column tariff consists of three autonomously determined tariff schedules: the general, intermediate, and the preferential. The general and the intermediate tariffs are similar to the maximum and minimum rates under the double column tariff system. The preferential rate is generally applied in case of trade between the mother countries and its colonies. The tariff barriers based on purpose are export duties, import duties, transit duties, revenue tariff, and the protective tariff. Export duty is a tax imposed on a commodity originating from the duty levying country. Import duty is a tax imposed on a commodity originating abroad and destined for the duty levying country. Transit duty, it is imposed on a commodity crossing the national frontier or borders originating from and destined for other countries. The revenue tariff, the main intention of the government to impose this tariff is to obtain revenue. The protective tariff, the primary objective for the government here is to give protection to domestic industries from foreign competition. NTBs are non-tariff barriers. These are in two categories. One, it's used to prevent foreign exchange outflows. They can be in the form of import licensing or import quotas, foreign exchange regulations, and canalization of imports. The other category is used by developed nations to protect their domestic industries which have lost international competitiveness or which are politically sensitive for the country. Voluntary export restraints are highly discriminatory bilateral agreements. NTBs can also be in the form of administered protection, as in safeguards, health and product standards, custom procedures, consular formalities, monetary controls, environment protection laws, and foreign exchange regulations. Thank you.